welcome to the 2025 season of the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series, and we're here to bring you all the information of the Super Series behind the visor. We're going to look into what some of the drivers are doing, what some of the events that we've got coming up later on in the year, as well as just really get a feel for what the series is all about in 2025. Of course, we're already 2 rounds into a 6-round series. Our last event just recently at Sydney Motorsport Park, and well and truly spectacular under lights there at Sydney as well. Great to have everyone here. Joining me on the panel today, Dylan Thomas. Fantastic to have you here, the man who's driven just about everything with 4 wheels.
Yeah, it's exciting to be here. It's cool to see some people coming into the panel tonight, and also really cool to see some people on Zoom as well. So nice to have all our guests, and Sydney Motorsport Park was awesome under lights, so great event.
Well, first off, let's talk to George Gambino, because he is the man behind Hi-Tec Oils. Into our 3rd year of the Super Series, a great support from you, George. How's it going from your side of things?
Well, we, as Hi-Tec Oils, loving the events at the moment. It's in our 3rd year. We learnt a lot and how to do things a little bit better than what we're doing. But for Hi-Tec Oils, it's really well. We've received really well. My customers love it. We're having corporate rides now on the 3rd day normally, and we're going to pass that on to all the other states. So it's going to be exciting.
Now, you just couldn't get enough of it, though. So we cast him on back a couple of years. You put big support behind the series, and it kicks off the Super Series. Yeah. You've now got a truck, a couple of cars, 2-seater. What was the motivation to get into the race scene?
To get race team, get a bit more exposure, give a couple of young kids some drives and one older guy in there to get in there and race.
Come
cars.
on, he's not that old, is he?
I know, Robbie's doing really well for what he's doing, but he's enjoying himself. It's good putting a high profile there. Brad's doing really well if he stops crashing a few cars and things like that, so that'd be good. But I know that's what we do, is we put our name on things, then we start promoting it and branding it. Putting it on cars is a great thing. I was just talking to another friend of mine, looks like we'll probably acquire another car in the next few weeks. So, and there's a lot of young kids wanting to drive these cars, so if they put their name on them, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, it's a big expansion, isn't it? 3 cars, that's a massive team to have. What are some of the logistics like? Who do you have behind the scenes helping you make that happen?
Well, I've got Raphael, who's been with me in the drifting world for the last 10 years and stuff like that. Now he's getting his head around these cars, and it's a bigger job than he currently won. And obviously he's very well in engineering parts and things like that. So we're getting around the TA2 cars and seeing how much works in a TA2 car. It's quite a lot. But he's getting his head around it. And then obviously the girls, Taylor's there behind the scenes, booking all the stuff there. We've got our own truck drivers now that love driving the new trucks around and stuff in the States. So it's a bit of a party thing. It's the truck set up really well. It's having 3 cars, but if I get another one, I'll have a problem.
It's a good problem to have, I think, for some people.
Yeah,
someone else who's getting to having some problems with TA2, and we got him on the line. Brock Paine, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. We touched on it briefly in Sydney, but I mean, you were Formula RX8 champion last year. You've acquired a car, though, in the off-season. We got to see, you missed out on round number 1, but we made it there to Sydney, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But how did you go acquiring that car, and what was it like to get into the TA2 scene?
Yeah, so we've always wanted to be into the TA2s. We sort of did that last year with Formula RSA, which was really great to come away with the win there for that season. But it was tough, and we wouldn't have done it without some of my amazing sponsors as well as all my family. That's why we missed the first round, unfortunately. We just didn't have enough time to get all the funds and sponsors together to actually purchase the car. But between a few of my sponsors, so Unita Plastering, Brisbane Builders, and B&T Carrying, they've come together and actually purchased the car for us. So huge shout out to those guys. Without them, we wouldn't be racing.
How much testing did you get done in the lead up to Sydney Motorsport Park if the car's a bit late up to the party?
Yeah, so we got the car about, I think, 6 weeks prior to Sydney. We done pretty much one handover day with the car, and then after we set the car up, we did 1 test day. So that was my 3rd time in the vehicle at Sydney, but obviously never racing yet. So you can do as many test laps as you want, but once you get on the track with another 20 cars, it changes things up a bit.
Yeah, and there's also you won the Goodyear tyre as well. So when you got the car handed over, did you get given the old Hoosiers and then have to adapt to the new tyre on the race weekend, or did you get some running on that prior?
Well, the first test day was on the Hoosiers, so we got a bunch of those with the car, which unfortunately, we can't use anymore. But we did one test day on the Goodyears, but we didn't want to. They were going to be our race tires for Sydney, so it's not like I could, I didn't want to flog the tires too much before we get to Sydney. So we did a few laps on them, but it was still, a bit of a learning curve there.
Now let's talk about Sydney. There's some exciting things to watch there. Josh Webster in front of you shoots out a tail shaft out of it, takes out your tyre. How deflating is that in your first race?
It was disappointing, especially like all the work that, myself and all my team put in just to get there. To come away with damage after the first race is always a little bit disheartening. But we had all the spares there. We got it back on the track, and the weekend only went up from there. So although it was a pretty devastating start to the weekend, we couldn't be more proud of how we finished it.
Yeah, on the podium, that's amazing.
I think what's really impressive is actually qualified P11. So you started at P11, the learning progression throughout, and then the DNF in race 1. To be fighting, actually leading some laps in the last race, the progression through the weekend was actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was sort of hoping I'd be around that top 10 mark. If I could finish inside the top 10 by the end of the weekend, I would have been happy with that. So I was qualifying 11th. I was I knew we were a little bit better than that, but I thought, for my first qualifying session, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. But yeah, I think we qualified 7th or 6th maybe on the Saturday. Yeah. So that was already a bit of an improvement there. And yeah, to be leading, a good portion of that last race was unreal.
What do you do against someone like Brad Gardner? We've got George here. He's already spoken about how Brad likes to bring the car back with a few dents in it. Yeah. He had a big run up there on the inside. Did you get to see that at the start of the race?
No, I didn't. I watched. Once I watched all the replays back, I saw that incident happen at the back there. But we're just happy to be avoiding that incident anyway.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, George.
Brad's had a lot of bad luck too.
He has had some bad luck.
I think the first race last year, the car got ridden off pretty much when he got dived.
But even the first practice session last year, you had a failure with the steering component that was brand new. And
if you watch all the Brads, and I feel super sorry for him sometimes because he gets a lot of bad luck, and he's been shunted off a lot of times and been pushed where he's right up there too.
Yeah.
And that's
the Adelaide one, no fault of his own, straight on the oil.
Yeah, straight on. There's another car ridden off pretty much there. So it's been a bit of bad luck for Brad. So we're helping him as best we can. We're getting him up there. We're confident he's going to get there. It's just it turns around eventually. Motorsport, as we know, sometimes you have a little bit of bad luck, Dylan, as you would know, but then all of a sudden you'll come good.
Yeah, home track. Next home track we're going to is yours, Brock, up at QR. What can we expect up there?
Oh, I don't know. Everyone seems pretty quick at QR, and I think because you only got 6 corners, there's not a lot of spots you can actually make up time. So a 10th at QR is a lot bigger than what a 10th at Sydney Motorsport Park is. So I think the racing's going to be tighter. I love QR as a racetrack. I think once you get 20 plus cars going door to door on there, it produces some of the best racing. Like last year, I think that was probably one of my favorite rounds. Was the Queensland Raceway round. So I'm looking forward to it. Unfortunately, we won't get another test in prior. So
that's going to make it difficult as well because the top 3 in the championship, being Hughesy, Gomersall and Josh Thomas, they've all done a lot of laps at that. It's also their home track. So the competition's going to be pretty fierce up there for that round.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be exciting. Coming to QR at the end of June, we go to round 3 of the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series. Thank you, Brock Paine, for joining us. Thanks, George. We love the support.
We'd just like to thank AASA, obviously, for putting this all on. It's their baby. Just helping them and pushing it along a little bit more with Stephen White. He couldn't make it today because obviously there's an empty seat here. But AASA has really done a big job to get this to where it is now. So hopefully it keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, and the Super Series, from a competitor standpoint, and thanks to George and Hi-Tec Oils, it is actually unreal, and also the AASA and what they put on with this whole series is actually really cool to be a part of. So thank you.
That's why we like to join in. That's why I think we'll just keep pushing and making it bigger and better. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Look, I tell you what, we've spoken about some exciting moments. Let's check out some of the highlights from Sydney Motorsport Park, round number 2.
We look at your highlights of race number 1, the pole sitter. But look at the car on the second row. Missed gear, made it 4 wide briefly on the way to turn number 1 as Tim Brook led us through. Jackson moved up to second briefly. This was Stibbs and Gartner up ahead with Josh Webster in the Autofix Ford Mustang. The early stages of this race, but then big dramas were to come for the 200. He tried to make the move down here, albeit awkward, through that left-hander. This was Davies and Thomas. So TFH cars featuring in the top 10, and then the moment here of the drive shaft breaking away from the Autofix cars, sending debris down the track, which in the end saw the Brock Paine car run over debris and cut his left front tyre down, and the Autofix Mustang going down the escape road, and up ahead, all the smoke. That was another incident, wasn't it, from one of the TFH cars that was locking up at turn 6. But for Brock Paine, he didn't get that car back to the pits, and that Goodyear tyre flapping away, and hope there's not too much internal damage with the 33 Chevy Camaro.
Yeah, you hope that is just mainly panel damage, that they can bolt some brand new ones on and get that car back out there very swiftly. But yeah, and this was another big moment, the restart. They've done about 8 laps under cold tyres, and then Domain Ramsey in the 71 goes really deep under brakes. Mark Crutcher caught up as well in an incident there, and he's gone deep, and I feel like that might have been cold tyres. Now, Brett Gardner in the final moments of this race trying everything he could to get to Davies and Thomas was just waiting for his moment, and we saw it here in the final moments of the race.
He just lured him in, didn't he? I don't think he was ever going to lose that race lead, but the margin, just 0.4 of a second from Brook back to Gomersall, and Gomersall just picking the points. It's all he needs to keep doing this weekend. And Tim Brook picks up the win.
Let's have a look at some of the highlights, though, from this previous race. And there was plenty going on. Dan McCarthy, this is where, unfortunately, Cameron Laws ended up in the side of Action Jackson. Of course, Hayden Jackson there, unfortunately, the 81 spun out. We might see a little bit come from back. Kiara Zavatakis there, unfortunately, it looks like she's just gone off on her own accord. This was the big moment, though. Ben Gomersall with a Hail Mary down the inside, made contact with Brad Gardner. Now, will there be ramifications from that, from race control? So White Dog's got a little bit of work to do. I'm sure there's plenty of people up in race control right now, and a few of them are wearing Hi-Tec Oil shirts.
There was plenty of drama, wasn't there? Lots of damage in that one. Domain Ramsey had damage to the front nose, so he had to bring that car into the lane. And of course we had the number 42, the walking wounded, and it would get even more wounded as the race went on. But Gardner was in the thick of the action, wasn't he, from start to finish?
I tell you what, he provides a lot of excitement in TA2 racing because he's always fighting out. Now, this is where the car, he just tried to pull it up, and we thought maybe the tyres are gone, but have a look there. It really shows now as there's oil on the track. Having a look at that, Ben Gomersall coming out the back of his car.
I nipped out the commentary box for a bit of a break during that race while you and Noltz were calling, and I could smell something in the air. There was definitely some sort of...
It smelled like carnage.
In the early stages, Gomersall made the move initially on the inside here of Josh Thomas. This is Graham Cheney, not even a sector into the race. And the blue 51 Chevy Camaro, the Rockstar, was lucky to get out of the rocks down here. At turn 7, the Danny Orr earth-moving number 5 was 1 lap down. In the end, he featured in 16th position. And this was the start of the move for Diesel Thomas, as he made up 10 positions very early in the race. This was a shower of sparks from the Autofix Mustang, but we didn't see that again, so perhaps it was the chassis or an exhaust system rubbing on the curbs.
Yeah, they had to wait patiently here, and Des Colley got help from his brother-in-law there, as Diesel Thomas helped him get down there and ended up taking both of those positions off him. Let Des Colley through on Domain Ramsey. This is where we saw Brett Gardner with sparks under the car and dropping back in the pack very, very quickly. Very hard to control the car, and wasn't long till we saw that car retire, unfortunately, with that steering damage. Remembering he had a little bit of contact with Ben Gomersall earlier in the race.
By this point, he couldn't turn the car off the final turn and managed to find a gap in traffic. This was Davies bowling the wide and allowing Brock Paine to get ahead of him. The Formula RX8 champion got up to 3rd position. A little moment here for the race leader. Would have got his heart rate up a bit. Certainly got ours up here in the commentary position. Warren Wadley doing his best to let the faster cars through. But nobody was going to stop Tim Brook. But has put Josh Thomas in a really good position going into the final race of the weekend. The gap, 1.3 seconds. Tim Brook to Josh Thomas and Brock Paine.
Well, great to remember so many of our highlights from Sydney Motorsport Park. Don't forget, round number 3 comes your way the 27th to the 29th of June up at Queensland Raceway. It's not too far away. In the meantime, we're going to hear from some of our fantastic sponsors and be back very shortly.
Hi-Tec Performance Oils. You want the best for your car. Drive well, stay safe with Hi-Tec Oils.
Well, welcome back to the Super Series Behind the Visor. We keep looking into some of the fantastic categories we've got joining us for this season. Next up, we're going to talk about the Hankook Australian Drivers' Championship. Some fantastic little Formula One, lots of aero, like really quick. Dylan, these are fantastic little cars.
Yeah, these are great. I actually looked into them last year. I actually tried to lease one for the Bend. Unfortunately, there was none available because they're so popular. But obviously, when I got out of TA2, looking at what was available, and these cars are quick. They're doing 1 minute 30s around Sydney Motorsport Park, which is supercars times, and unfortunately there was none available, so I ended up in the old legends, but I could have very well ended up in these categories if there was any available.
Well, let's have a talk to one of the men behind the Hankook, name behind the Australian Drivers' Championship. Terry Conway joins us, as well as Hayden Crossland. Terry, let's talk to you first. What is it about these little cars and this Australian Drivers' Championship that has made Hankook want to be involved?
18 months ago, a guy called Jerry Burgess rang when he was at Winton, and he said to me, listen, I want you to hear something. And I was wondering what he was talking about. The next thing I hear one of these things go past. I'm in Sydney and he's down there. I said, what are they? Are the motorbikes out? He said, no. He said, they're hyper races. And I said, what are you talking about? Cut a long story short, I went down to a meeting later on. I saw these cars and I couldn't believe the potential, the way they were built, where they're built in Australia. And in particular, being built in Australia, the serviceability of the car, available of spare parts overnight, designed in Australia, developed in Australia, and the whole factor was, to me, was commercially viable for a person to go and buy one or lease one and race it. And one thing led to another, and we looked at, I approached Hankook and I said, here's something that we should be involved with. We sent the proposal to head office in Sydney, which was then sent to head office in Korea. I came back and said, yes, let's get involved with it, let's support this category. So we've signed a 3-year contract with Jonathan and Dean Crook in Melbourne, where the cars are built at Hypers. And from then on, it's really, the category's growing to such an extent now that I think by this time next year, I think there'll be 2 divisions going by the orders and the interest in them. And also, if you look up on YouTube, you'll notice that they're overseas. There's one in England, there's 2 or 3 in America, and so on. So they're featuring not only here, but overseas, and their coverage, media-wise, is excellent.
Yeah, they're great little cars. I mean, join us also Hayden Crossland. You had a fantastic round 2, which we'll get to very shortly, but what is it about these cars that interested you? Because you're not just from, you haven't just jumped into a hyper, it's something you've built to, you've driven a lot of different cars. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, I started off in go-karts in 2015, so I had a decent run in go-karts before I moved to cars in, I think it was 2021 or 2022. Moved into Formula V, and then we sort of did some bits and pieces. We did the Ferrari Academy in Malaysia, which was awesome, 2022. Yeah, that was amazing. Learned so much about this stuff, media, nutrition, the whole lot. So that was really cool. And then got back from that, sort of had a bit of a break and figured out what we could do next. And these came up. We actually got approached to drive one in November of 2023. And, I never say no to driving a race car, so jumped straight into it. Had to go fast from the get-go, so I think the cars are so fast and so stable that you can just put so much confidence into it straight away, which is not really a thing that you can do all the time. You'd know that for sure.
Yeah.
They're just so confidence inspiring. Like I loved it straight away.
What's the aero like in it? So you say the confidence is the confidence inspired from mechanical grip, or is the aero pretty good? Because the diffusers on them look pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're gnarly. So I think it's a bit of both. You know, the Hankook tyre is amazing, but at the same time, the aero they produce, I think it's about 800 kilos at 200 k's an hour. So gnarly. Like at the end of the straight at the bend, we actually saw like the side skirts dragging on the floor. There's that much drag going through these cars. So they're a bit of everything, but yeah, definitely a handful.
Yeah, maybe I should jump in one of them too.
Oh, I'm sure you want it. Now, tell us. Let's talk Sydney now. That's your home track. Have you done a lot of laps around there before?
Yeah, not in this car. Obviously, it was the only laps I've done in this car were in the wet as like a media day. But everything else for sure. Production cars, Formula V, done it all. But yeah, wicked. I had the whole family out there. Everyone got to watch what we did back there in, 2 weeks ago. So it was amazing. Really cool.
Clean round. You go out. There was a little bit of competition there.
Well, I was about to say the same thing. It looks like a clean round on paper because it's all wins, but you know Damon got the lap record, so you didn't take the whole lot. There was some competition there, and he's leading the championship.
Yep.
I know it had a little bit of adversity at round 2 for you, but so you got some good competition going there.
Yeah, no, for sure. He is. He's rapid, very fast. He's been in the cars since day dot. So always a task going to beat Damon, but I think with the home track advantage and the confidence of having all my mates there and family there, I had a reason to do it. And I lost my pop about a week before the race, so I had motive, and we went out there and smashed it. It was really cool.
What are the guys like? Because whenever I go down to the pits there for you guys, everyone's jumping in. Like someone's broken a shifter or something, they're in there. A chain's gone, they're in there. Like it just seems to be someone blows an engine up, they're a Hayabusa engine them. So someone's at the motorbike wreckers buying a bike and doing an engine change overnight. Like what's the feeling like in the pits?
Can I just interrupt there? A guy blew an engine in a previous round, and he went and bought a second-hand Hayabusa bike. He took the engine out of the bike, then put the frame, the chassis for sale, and put the engine in the car and finished on the Sunday.
Yeah, I know, it's incredible. There's stories like that just come out every time you go racing. There seems to be something incredible like that happens.
100%. So there was actually almost one person from every garage helping that guy put that motor in that car on the Saturday night at the bend. But there's stories like that all over the place. Like even at Sydney Motorsport Park, I had Dean, who builds the cars in Melbourne, come up to me and he spotted a gold link on my chain, which it means it's getting hot, it's going to bust in the next race. So he actually changed it for me, gave me a chain, and that's just the people they are. It's really cool.
Yeah, no.
Another thing I want to just also touch on, you mentioned Ferrari Academy. Let's get to know the drivers. Tell us a little bit about Ferrari Academy, what you did there in that process. You talked about the nutrition and whatnot. How's the process to get involved in that, and what did you do in that process?
So to get involved in it, they sent out this big proposal, and it was free will. So anyone could enter into it. Then it was up to MA Motorsport Australia to pick the 24 best from Asia Pacific. So there was kids from all over the place, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere, to be honest. And once we got there, obviously they selected the 24 best. We got there into Malaysia and we did media training like this. Sat down, did full media days. We did a beep test, fitness coaching, fitness training, the whole lot. So it was a full academy. It wasn't even really, to be honest, based on the driving. We did 3 hours in the car, but it was the littlest part. Like the fitness and everything else behind on the back end was much bigger than the actual speed in the car.
Yeah, cool. And you got to drive on, the Sepang circuit, which I know well truly is pretty warm. And I did a night race there, and it wasn't very well lit up. But how'd you find driving international circuits?
Super cool. Yeah. That was the first time for me, so that's absolutely amazing. And to be in an F4 car, like when I jumped in the car, they were like, "All right, out you go," and I'm, how does it work? All these different buttons on the steering wheel that I wasn't used to. But yeah, super cool. That track is one of a kind. It's super, super cool. Still my coolest thing that I've done to this day.
Well, you finish the year off the way you go, and you might have a new coolest thing that you've got going on, a championship in these cool cars. I mean, come on.
There's a couple of names there too. So, like, this championship's not over.
He's not even leading the championship. He's got work to do.
No, exactly. But you're not out of realm of getting there either. Yep. So, we've seen lots happen there, especially with, obviously, Dean and that. So, we'll wait and see how that sort of pans out in the Australian Drivers' Championship.
For sure. Very excited, very keen to get the rest underway.
Terry, Hankook, can't thank you enough for coming in today. I mean, fantastic that you get behind the Australian Drivers' Championship. Every driver really loves the tyre on the car. I think it's great to have this sort of national support behind a category like this because it is, like you said, it's growing. They're selling the cars overseas, made in Australia, built in Australia, designed all here. And every time we go out, we seem to have another couple at the grid.
Yeah, and it's so cost effective too.
And particularly with open wheelers in Australia, it's not that well supported. So to see, you know, approaching 30 cars in this one, giving you that aero experience is actually fantastic.
Well, in 4 rounds, we had 21, 19, 19 and 17 entries, and that is totally unheard of in the Australian Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
And no matter how far back you go, when you see, and they're all the same cars.
Definitely on the way up this category.
On the way up. Well, let's check out some of the highlights from Sydney last round. Let's have a look at some of the highlights. We said off the start between Crossland and Sterling, it was going to be interesting. Sterling got to an early lead though, didn't he? And Crossland had to really fight, and have a look on the outside. It was a 2. He managed to keep going. Now, this was the moment. The 64 went off, had a big moment there off in the dirt. Then we saw brake lock up there from Summons as well. So there's plenty of little moments there, I suppose, on these tyres.
Yes, certainly was. Plenty of talking points throughout the race, no matter where you looked through the pack. This was the fight. Girton was right in it for position number 2 and 3 at one point in the race, but didn't these two come home strong? And they had a great tussle for position number 2. Hamish Leighton sliding up the inside of Crook, but he had the inside, did the latter for the 3rd corner. Great race in between them. Finally though, Leighton made it stick up the inside at turn 2, while Smith got through on French and then came like a train towards those top 2 late on.
Yeah, it really went down to the final moments, didn't it? And Leighton did a fantastic job, I think, to hold out Crook that moment. Nicholas French will be the one to unpack there to find out exactly what went wrong, because he went back a number of positions.
That was the damage there for Damon Sterling, our championship leader. But behind that, 2 positions further back, Hayden Crossland took his 3rd race victory of the season. The Hankook Australian Drivers' Championship, race number 3. They went 2 by 2, side by side around turn number 1. But in the midsection of lap 1, they spread out in a bit of a lock-up there. This was a big moment. Carl Girton running wide at turn number 3. Lucky to keep that off the barrier and lucky to keep it facing in the right direction, which cannot be said for Chris Peters.
No, he unlocked the car there, didn't he, and spun around into the grass. That was unfortunate for him, so we didn't see him finish up there. Probably where we would have, and this was a 3-way battle that went on for a long time for that 4th position, but then a bit further down the field you could still see plenty going on, but this is the one that we focused on, didn't we? Smith, Crook and Girton, and for many, many laps they were jostling it out, and we saw position changes happening. In the end, it was Dean Crook who just couldn't quite hold on. He had a couple of moments throughout the race where he tried to do a attempt, but these two went side by side through sections of this racetrack, Girton and Smith. Girton in the green machine. And I thought this was a formation lap when we're going through this, because they were just side by side through 3 corners, up through 5, 6 and 7. Finally, Girton got in front, and then all of a sudden, Nico French was there. He caught up to him from back of the pack, all the way up. Managed to get himself a 6th position finish.
This is a battle pack that just would not stop giving, would it? But out in front, Hayden Crossland could not be stopped. He's enjoying his time here at Sydney Motorsport Park. He took the race victory. Thumbs up to his family and friends. Great start, very equal between the top 2. We went very briefly 3 wide around turn number 1, and there's a little bit of a touch even between Sterling and Girton. Gardner was facing backwards at turn 2, and Leighton had the first of many significant lockups.
This was the moment there where we just saw Smith make contact with Caitlin, and unfortunately Caitlin was trying to come up the inside, and that hurt the car, which brought the safety car out, couldn't restart it. Crossland, well, he was weaving and ducking and trying to make sure he could get them out of the tow. For a moment there, we thought that Sterling was going to have a dive, but he couldn't quite get it done, and then we went back to this battle. Nico French starting to head through the pack. He had Dean Crook behind him, and they had to try and make an assault on Leighton, who was in front of him at that stage for 4th position. Eventually, Nico French had a go, but Dean Crook was the victor out of all this, because while they were going side by side, Dean Crook snuck up the inside and managed to get that position for a moment. When him and Nico French kept that battle going, and he managed to get that position back.
Certainly did. Smith had a bit of a look there at Leighton late on in the race. But this is a great tussle for position number 4. And in the end, it did go the way of Nico French. But this man was peerless all weekend long. Hayden Crossland in the carbon racing machine, taking the victory. His 4th, a clean sweep for the local New South Welshman, and a fantastic performance.
Well, it was an exciting round 2 for the Hankook Australian Drivers' Championship, that is for sure, and it is going to go right down to the line. I have to thank Terry and Hayden for coming in today. Thanks for joining us on the panel.
No, thank you.
Much appreciated.
We're going to be back after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
Hi-Tec Performance Oils. You want the best for your car. Drive well. Stay safe with Hi-Tec Oils.
Well, welcome back to the Super Series Behind the Visor, and we will keep looking at the categories involved in the 25 season. Dylan Thomas, the next one is something that we've seen a number of supercar drivers evolve their careers through, the Formula Fords.
Yeah, Formula Fords is great for developing, racecraft. Yeah. Great slipstreaming. It's always a calculated game in Formula Ford. You don't always want to lead that last lap. You want to put yourself in a good position to get the toe to the line, particularly at a venue like Sydney Motorsport Park.
Oh yeah, and like last time they created some exciting racing. It really came down between Kobe Williams, who was dominant, but Lachlan Evanet was right on his heels, and we're talking thousandths of a second across the finish line in a couple of those races. Yeah,
and again, the slipstream creates that close quarter racing, and Kobe's done a great job all year. He's leading the championship, won the round, doing a great job. But I guess we've got some other guests we should probably go to.
It's not all about those two, is it? Jamie Rowe, we invite you in here to the Super Series Behind the Visor. Welcome. You had a really tough start at round number 2. It was race 2 or 3 where you decided to turn your car into a bit of a rolling machine.
It wasn't ideal, but yeah, I had a good first round, and then looking to back it up in the second, and in the second race on Saturday night, made a mistake and ran a bit wide at turn 1, and the rest just happened on its own. Got into the gravel and did a bit of a flip. So
what was probably more impressive was the rebuild and getting up to Queensland to Morgan Park the following weekend. Tell us about what you had to do in the garages overnight.
Yeah, that was a big night, and we were there till 1 o'clock, and then back again Sunday morning at 6, all the way till 6 o'clock at night. Huge effort by the team we stripped the thing completely, redone the body, every 4 corner on the thing was destroyed. So it was a huge effort, and got it up to Queensland in pieces, and then Mike Boland's finished the job up there, and arrived at Queensland with a car back together. So it was great from the whole team.
Jamie, tell us we're a few years on, the motivation levels go down a bit. What is your motivation, though, to show up again at 6 in the morning, get that car rebuilt, make it to the next race? Is there a big goal inside, or is it just because you love Formula Ford?
There is a big goal. Obviously, I love V8 cars, so that is the dream. This is like a stepping stone, so every race I get to, I'm learning. So just want to keep developing and want to get to every race I can. So that's what pushed me to get there, put the hard effort in getting the car back together, and had a great team around me so I could make it happen. So it was really great.
Well, with that stepping stone in the Hi-Tec Super Series, we've obviously got the TA2 cars. Is that one of the steps in the progression?
I'm not sure yet. I would love to. I did a test probably 2 or 3 Wednesdays ago in one of Hollinger's cars, and I really enjoyed it. So it's a step I'd love to take.
Is he going to let you get behind the Innovation race car, maybe, you reckon?
I don't know about that.
That's a fast machine, I tell you what. Well, Jamie, we thank you for your time to come on to the Super Series Behind the Visor today. Unfortunately for you, we're going to check out some highlights, and I dare say you might be one of them. But good luck for the rest of the season. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's check out the highlights, Formula Ford. Well, let's have a look at some of the race highlights. It was on from the start, wasn't it? Williams and Evanet were going to go at it, but it was this contact here with Salvatore and Force. Now, Salvatore spun off the track and managed to get it back online, but we know in the background the number 23 went off. And then there was a big moment here for the 56, wasn't there? As he spun off the track there. That was a huge moment. Fitzgerald, that could have been a lot worse than it was.
Oh, that was a great move from Ho, wasn't it? Really backed it in there at turn number 1. Brad James did the same thing, but he was just in a bit too deep, backed it in, locked up and ran wide. He locked the rears. This man on the screen, Johnson, locked the fronts and got escorted wide.
Look at the shuddering, though, as he pulled that down to number 14. He did a little bit of a fight back at the end there, managed to get himself in position. See Belloc just run wide there at the moment. Now, here was a moment where we thought, potentially, as Evanet dove down the inside of Williams, he really took it to him, but he couldn't make the move stick.
the end he couldn't get the pass done. Now still out on the outside there, just giving us some sparks in the night. Fitzgerald there making a lot of outer moves over the ripple strip. In the late stages of the race, Tabitha Ambrose managed to get past the Pioneer DJ entry there of Bellac as well. So just slowing down. And this was as we crossed the finish line there, and a big celebration from Williams as he held out Evanet in an epic race number 1 here for the weekend for the Formula Ford. And I'm sure they'll be talking about that down in pit lane. Well, let's have a look at some of the Hi-Tec Oils highlights from this race number 2 here on a Friday night. And it all started, didn't it? Williams got the run into turn number 1 and Evanet on the outside. But we know that Rowe just said, hey, I'm going to put my nose in there and have a look at this one.
Certainly did. This was Fraser High getting in the thick of the action. Brad James, this was the sketchy moment when he had it all locked up. But as I say, that was very great heads-up driving from Jack Johnson to see that one coming. The sparks were flying both on the racetrack and from underneath the cars as well as the fighting continued. This was the fight for 3rd position between Lowing, Rowe and Fawcett. Let's not forget Fawcett, who made the move on Rowe at turn 2, came from the very back of the field to finish on the podium.
Yeah, very quick initially, wasn't to get 4 or 5 positions, then had to fight his way through, and didn't go all his way to the end. This is towards the closing stages in the final couple of laps where Evanet had to just take every opportunity. But Williams decided, you know what, I just got to stay on the outside because you know there's a right-hander coming up, and as long as I can keep that momentum going, I think I can stay in the lead. Now, there was a moment down here where we saw Tabitha Ambrose go off. Not quite sure in the background there because Fitzgerald was there, but it didn't look like contact made. This was the final corner of the final lap, and Evanet just went a little bit wide, that off-camber section there where it pulls the car over the ripple strip. And at that point, we thought he was slowing down, but the checkered flag was out and just comfortably home in 2nd. Let's talk about how many times the lead's going to change throughout this one. I tell you what, that's going to take him a full A4 paper size there. Williams didn't muck around, got to the lead nice and early there. You can see how wide he's going to. Evanet just knew to come on the inside of that under brakes into 2. It wasn't going to happen this early in the race. This was in the opening lap and thought he might have a little bit of a charge, but a few laps in he found an opportunity, and it was down here at turn number 6 where he just got him under brakes, and very lucky there because there were a number of brake lockups later on in the race.
Such as this one right here for the race leader Evanet through turn 6. But Williams was quick to respond up the inside into the first corner, the sweeper here at SMSP. Nice move from him, but there was going to be lots of moves between the two of them. That was really close. That's the closest they got all race long. I thought they were going to collide there briefly, but they just about got away with it. There is the moment. Oh, dearie me, that went on its back wheels and everything. That was a hairy roll there for the man, Jamie Rowe. I'm so pleased to see him get out of there because that was a big accident.
Yeah, unfortunately that means I don't know if they're going to get that car fixed before the next race. They've only got a couple of hours to turn that round. Significant damage on that. Well, the Formula Fords, they were thousandths of a second between them over the finish line. Super exciting to watch, and someone who loves the Formula Fords is Jeff Grech, a man who's very experienced in racing. When he can deal with the Scafies and the Lounges of the world, I think he can run these young fellas in Formula Ford. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hugh, thanks, lads.
What is it about Formula Ford that's invigorating you to try and get this series really dominant?
Mate, honestly, look, you don't have to be Einstein. I mean, over the years, Formula Ford has always been the best feeder into car racing, whether it's open wheelers or touring cars. I mean, you know, you look at the honour list out of Formula Ford, the Craig Lowndes, Jamie Whincup, you know, they've all been through it. And as you tested at Sydney Motorsport Park, I mean, that was some of the best racing I've seen in Formula Ford for a long while. You know, young car, all the three at the front were swapping, you know, lead, and they're as quick as a TA2 car. To race that close at that speed, I mean, all those young drivers, I mean, even down the field a bit, you know, some of the others. If a supercar team owner's not looking at some of those young drivers, well, you know, they're looking in the wrong area, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd agree. And look, one of the things that you've got to take in mind is back in that era, you know, Craig Lowndes and those guys all went straight from Formula Ford to supercars. there's a bit more of a progression these days, but the lessons learnt in Formula Ford is still so valuable, that thinking game, the racecraft, the slipstream. I mean, you often look at some of the best races, you know, like the McLaughlins and the Van Gisberns and all that sort of stuff. It's always talked about the racing brain. The racing brain is developed in Formula Ford. You might need to go through a few more categories these days to get to supercars, but Formula Ford is absolutely necessary for these young guys to come up, build that racing brain, and then, you know, develop the skills as they go along.
You're 110% right. That's exactly why any of those drivers, I would write them a reference out tomorrow to a team that was looking for something in the future and special, because a few of them were really good. Some of them are struggling a little bit, but they'll get there. They're learning their craft, and as you said, it's all about the two things: racing and thinking on the run, and that's you can't get that in many other categories at the moment.
We're looking forward to our next round, Jeff, up at Queensland Raceway, the end of June. What is that going to bring to the drivers?
The Queensland Raceway's a funny layout, but it produces good racing, because you've got, you know, it's fast through turn 1 and 2 and a bit bumpy. So a Formula Ford, obviously with no aero, they move around a little bit, but then you've got 4, you know, where they can all have a bit of a dive under brakes, and even through the middle of the track, but especially down coming onto the start finish, you'll see another couple of moves there where they'll be slipstreaming, and I'm really looking forward. I think it'll produce great racing at Queensland Raceway.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, it's great to have you on the Super Series Behind the Visor. We can't wait to see you in. Is only going to be a few weeks away up at Queensland Raceway, 27th to the 29th of June. Can't wait to see you smile up there.
Mate, I'm looking forward to it, and hope to see you both up there, smiling and grinning.
Mate, bring on the warm weather is what I say.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice and warm, especially the East Coast. It's been cold.
Yeah, but it's a tough little track, so we'll all be working pretty hard up there. So yeah, be good to see.
Well, we're going to go to a short break now. We'll be back very shortly. Don't go anywhere. We've still got to talk about our Australian legend cars.
Hi-Tec Performance Oils. You want the best for your car. Drive well. Stay safe with Hi-Tec Oils.
Well, welcome back to the Super Series Behind the Visors. We keep looking into what the drivers can see out there. And next up, we're going to talk to Plazmaman, Australian Super Tin Tops, Dylan Thomas. It's almost like a production car, isn't it, for you? It's almost there.
It's almost there. No, they're probably a lot better than a production car. These things are doing, 35s to 37s or something. So pretty quick lap times. A bit of a BMW Cup there on the weekend. So our next guest might not be happy about that.
Nah, Cory Gillett, we welcome you to the panel here. I mean, you're in a Sylvia, so you're missing out on the battle of the BMWs at the front. It's been a bit of a tough year for you.
I know, mate. It has been a tricky year. I've gone from a year where had all the reliability, and this year I'm couldn't buy a bloody race win or a race finish at the moment. It's been crazy.
Well, you must have come in at Sydney Motorsport confident, because last year you were actually pretty strong at Sydney Motorsport Park, but this year the struggles.
I know, mate. Yeah, and look, the category's kicking off, and like you said, there's plenty of cars there and some serious, well-built machines, which is cool. And yeah, like I said, if it looks like if you don't have a BMW, you're racing for 4th or 5th at the moment, isn't it?
Look, you're doing a lot of work now within the category to try and build this in the background, and we saw some numbers at Winton for round number 1, but this round here, almost 30 cars out on track, and also helping out some other categories there. What is it like to try and build that category up, and how hard has it been?
Man, I've been spent hours and hours on the phone just ringing, hey, come on, let's go, hooking, saying which hotels to go to, just helping everyone out. It's been really good. I've been really lucky. It's just talking, it's simple.
Yeah, and that's cool. It's good camaraderie amongst all the competitors makes the racing a lot more fun. So it does look like a good fun category for everyone involved. And what are we expecting for Queensland Raceway in numbers? Good.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see. There's been, the championship's close. They're all sort of playing at the front. we're hoping for a lot of Queenslanders that have been seeing the fun we had at Sydney and Winton and so want to join in. I don't know. We'll see. It could be 10. There could be 30. It's always a surprise.
And how serious are some of the guys taking it? I mean, you've obviously got Matty Sims won the weekend, and you've got Mark Tracy leading the championship. Like, how serious are these guys taking it? Are they all there for a bit of fun, or is there some serious stuff in the middle there?
Oh, look, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't want to play cards against any of them. They say they're there for fun, but once that helmet and that visor comes down, I'm sure it's we're racing for sheep stations for sure.
Oh, it's going to be a good championship, I think, between Sims and Tracy. I mean, Tracy came back at the end of the weekend. His son threw a setup in the car, didn't tell his dad, and just said, take it out there, and his dad didn't know, and really a bit of misfortune in that race. And then Tracy fought back later in the weekend. So I think Sims and Tracy, for me, are the ones that probably going to go down to the wire.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, like Chilby's on the chat now, but definitely them two. They're yin and yang at the moment. It's really cool. I actually think they're in the Drivers' Championship. They're equal on 185 points each. There's a little typo in our point system, but yeah, I just did some maths and they're actually equal going into round 3. So if one turns up, the other one's going to have to come now, aren't they?
Well, speaking about turning it up, let's have a look at some of the highlights from the Plazmaman Australian Super Tin Tops.
Our leaders didn't get a great start. Sims and Tran, they were left sleeping on the line. I just think maybe the gears in the car and a gearbox issue potentially for Tran. And have a look at this. It was a great start, though. Steeden managed to get around the outside as well. Chilby for a moment there for Harwood, where we saw a little bit further on that one of the intake pipes had come off and didn't have any boost in that car.
Absolutely. This is one of the charges through the field. Benny Tran charged forwards midway through the race with a big slide and a big catch at turn number 4. However, he would also slide back down the field at the end of the race. We didn't see this earlier on. Cory Gillett with a huge lockup down there into the turn, and then the spin for Ryder in the number 98 machine. He did get that back going, but he did finish all the way down, a couple of laps down in 23rd position overall. Out in front though, Sims was never really challenged in that one, was he? He took off into the distance, taking the victory by just over 12 seconds.
Well, the highlights really did show the battle of the BMWs out there throughout the weekend. Can't wait for them to be up at Queensland Raceway from the 27th to the 29th of June. Cory, thank you for joining us here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys, and see you guys in Queensland, eh? Bring some warm weather with us, would you?
Yeah, should be good.
Well, we can't wait for the warmer weather. Let's grab a quick break. We'll be back very shortly.
Hi-Tec Performance Oils. You want the best for your car. Drive well. Stay safe with Hi-Tec Oils.
Well, welcome back to the Super Series Behind the Visor, and we keep going through these categories, Dylan Thomas, but one of the new exciting categories that's come to the series in 2025 has been the innovation race cars, which are a spectacular race car. When you pull them down, so modular, a lot of horsepower, really dynamic chassis, and they're very quick around every racetrack.
Look, I've actually had the privilege of driving one of the early cars. This is a derivative from the Mark cars, and I got to drive one of the early Mark cars, did a 12-hour in it. Probably one of the best cars I've ever driven. It's a purpose-built car, you know, tube frame, purpose-built, basically a mini supercar. That was the earlier ones. They've moved on from there, so, you know, when we get Danny on, we can have a bit of a chat about the new cars and what he's moving forward with that, but they're fantastic cars.
Yeah, they've got to be keeping up with the supercars and things like that. The amount of grip they've got. I mean, you still keep the modern style behind them. They've got ABS. They've got lots of, you know, I suppose more sensors and initiatives behind the car to try and get the most out of it.
Oh, absolutely. And as I said, they are a mini supercar. They've got, you know, like the sequential gearboxes. As I said, haven't driven one of the new ones. When we speak to Danny, you know, maybe I'll hit him up for a drive. He does a bit of overseas driving. Wouldn't mind to go do one of these.
Well, let's hit him up right now. Danny Stutterd joins us here on the panel show Behind the Visor. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you, boys. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We've talked up the innovation race cars. Tell us, what have we missed?
You're pretty close. Obviously, they're a generation car, starting with the Mark 1s and then the Mark 2s. And this is the latest generation. Effectively, is exactly what they like, a V8 supercar with a bit of GT stuff thrown in, with ABS, traction control, Dylan's right. The first ones were sequential paddle shifts or sequential. These are now paddle shifts. So basically they're not far behind a GT pace-wise. I think we were sort of 28s around Sydney a couple of weeks ago in your guys' series. So they're, as Dylan said, purpose-built out of Yatala with Paul Sepenich as the engineering department. And they've just been around for a long time and doing series around the world and obviously trying to form our own series with you guys in Aussie.
Well, tell us what you're doing with it around the world. I mean, you're speaking to Paul Tracy, a well-known motorsport name in America. You're trying to get these cars out. Tell us the global reach.
Dylan, what we're trying to do basically, well, I'll go back a little bit. Basically, the innovation race car became available when I was talking to Paul about, you know, what will I do after Carrera Cup, and I was sort of searching to sort of as a race series. I was lucky enough to drive one, and I thought, you know, they're really cool. They're fast, predictable, still raw, you know, like a V8 supercar. They're obviously, you know, the LS3 motor. So I basically became the seller for the IRC cars in Australia, and I went, knowing that I'd been around the world and doing a bit of endurance stuff, I thought, gee, they'd go all right around the world. So we launched them in America, basically with Paul Tracy as our person, you know, our spokesperson. To do that, I actually invited Paul to come over and do a Bathurst 12 hour in the car. So myself, Max Twigg, Jeff Emery, and Paul did the Bathurst 12 hour to launch the car. We basically went into the invitational class and we had 3 cars running in that field, and we took first, second and third out. So it was a pretty good launch for the car. We then sent a couple of cars over and they're basically running around in their sort of Trans Am series. Paul's driving it for me. He's won a few races and we're halfway through the season. So we're trying to launch it into America. So basically that's where we're at. We've sold 15, I think. We're up to number 15 of the IRC car. But primarily we're trying to obviously build the category in Australia. That's where our main aim is at the moment.
Yep, and where's that at? I mean, we were hoping probably to see a few more at Sydney Motorsport Park, but the GT's up at another venue on that weekend, which probably the GT4 has probably limited some numbers. How are we looking for Queensland Raceway? How are we going with the Australian growth?
It's good, actually. I mean, it's like anything, Dylan. I mean, the more people that drive them and understand the costings and the running. We've sold another car last week, so there'll be a new competitor for Sydney. Basically, mate, we'll probably have about a dozen to 15 cars on the grid for Sydney and slowly building. Out of that, though, there's probably 3 or 4 Mark 1s. When I took over the IRC business, I included the Mark 1s and the Mark 2 because they obviously wanted somewhere to race because the Mark series doesn't exist anymore. So there'll be 3 or 4 Mark 1s, 2 or 3 Mark 2s, and the balance will be the IRC cars. So it's growing. Look, Sydney was a shame. I mean, what a wonderful event under lights and all that. We had a ball, you know, but it was just a clash with a few guys doing other series like, you know, basically, as you said, the GT4, the GT3s and sports sedans at QR that weekend. So it was a bit of a clash. They don't clash again, so we're looking stronger as the year goes on.
Yeah, look, and the cars look absolutely magnificent out there on track as well. That's one thing I do have to say. Under lights at Sydney was no disappointment. And let's have a quick look at some of the highlights, say, from the IRC Sydney Motorsport Park. Yeah, great to see that a couple of issues for some of the cars there at Sydney Motorsport Park, Danny. But I mean, mate, it's going to be even more exciting up at Queensland Raceway, I'm sure, on the 27th to 29th of June for round number 3 of the Super Series. Can't wait for the Innovation Race Cars. We thank Danny Stutterd for joining us today.
No worries. Well, yeah, look forward to it. And again, I do appreciate the AASA guys and all the help that you guys are giving us to start a series. It's never easy. I'm not sure what category starts with full fields, but we're working hard, and hopefully we'll have continued support and more cars on the grid every round.
I'm sure there's going to be plenty of support up there at Queensland Raceway. Don't go too far, because we'll be back right after this short break.
Hi-Tec Performance Oils. You want the best for your car. Drive well, stay safe with Hi-Tec Oils.
Welcome back here to the Super Series Behind the Visor as we talk TFH Hire Legend Cars Australia, supported by Simpson Tarace. This time though, we're going to lean over, we're going to open this visor up because Dylan Thomas here is the man. You've actually got behind these Legend cars this year, these little pocket rockets that are out there. What were some of the reasons for choosing the Legend car?
Well, I mean, obviously when we finished up with the TA2, it's actually a very challenging I guess landscape in the motorsport thing. Where do you go from TA2 and find something that's probably a little bit more cost effective? Obviously with my son doing all his motocross, the double spend is not always ideal, but you know, but that gives you that same level of excitement. Now, I actually went to go lease the hypercar for Tail and Ben last year and couldn't get one, couldn't lease one of these, but I was able to buy one. So I thought, I'll buy it. If it's no good, I'll sell it. And now I've got 2. But these things are great. You know, like at Sydney Motorsport Park, we were like 14 seconds slower than the TA2, but 10 seconds of that was in the straight, you know, in sector 1, so which is all straight line. So you're only 4 seconds slower around the wiggly bits than a TA2. These things dance around. There's 33 guys, you know, all within close quarter racing. A little bit like the Formula Fords and that, where you've got the slipstream in, and you know, you've got to have a little bit of a thinking man's game. So just exciting racing. The cars dance, and you know, it's always good to learn a new category and try and develop yourself as a driver and an engineer at the same time.
A little 13-inch treaded tyre as well. We're not talking a slick tyre, are we?
Oh, mate, and the tyres are $150. They're cheap as, so, and you run 3 or 4 rounds out of them, and they dance around. And some tracks like really old tyres, and some tracks like new tyres. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of learning, a bit of balance and stuff.
Now, you've thrown yourself amongst a mix of a lot of kids that have got out of go-karts and stepping up into these Legend cars as a sort of career path. What are you finding amongst some of those drivers, some of the talent that's out there?
Mate, there's some really, really good young guys. Young Aska Sendel that won on Sydney Motorsport Park on the weekend. You know, good young kid, going to America later this year as well. Going to do a few rounds over there with Lockie Ward, who's you know, set himself up with Legend cars in America. You know, at one raceway at the previous round, we had young Aidan Williams, who just schooled us all. You know, so he really showed us how to do it. So it's a good mix of some experienced guys like the Hogans and the Prings who have been there for a while. Myself, the old guy, and a couple of these young go-kart kids are really fast. So it's really quite cool to you know, just experience these guys and also help them learn. You know, like you know, happy to race, but you know, and not bang wheels and show them and race with them respectfully.
Well, let's talk about banging wheels for a second there. There's got to be an extreme highlight of you, isn't there? Going down the main straight, you were 2 wheels in the air.
Well, as I said, my son does motocross and he doesn't think car racing's that cool. So I thought if I do a wheelie, he might, you know, think a bit more of my racing. But that was a bit of an accidental, you know, the old trying to get a slipstream, take away a little bit of the toe of the guy in front, and I just misjudged the wheel stick out, and yeah, we touched a bit of wheels and went up. But you know, it's not that exciting. It probably looks worse from the outside than the inside.
It looked pretty exciting on the TV.
Yeah, well, I was more worried about Tatey coming up the inside of me. So once I realised I'd messed up that pass, I was like, let's block Tatey so he can't get me. So the racer's brain's always working about position.
Now, you're not doing too bad in the championship either. Ryan Pring's up there with you. He's the current Australian championship. I mean, these are much like Speedway in the sense that they have a national championship where we're running along with the Super Series for most of it, and then they've got an Australian championship with like a national title weekend. So he's got both of those at the moment. Yep. And you're challenging him this year.
Yeah, it's pretty tight at the top at the moment. So Ryan Pring and myself are, you know, unofficially equal on points for the lead of the series, and only 2 points behind is young Hayden Williams, who we're talking about. So, you know, very, very tight, and you know, a long way to go. So, you know, if you focus on the weekends, you worry about the championship towards the end of the year. So, you know, I was speaking to Ryan Pring earlier in the weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park, and he was like talking points and whatever, and I'm like, mate, don't worry about points. I said, right now, you, me, a few of the other guys, all we need to do is make sure we do clean weekends. And when we get to the back end of the year, then we can start looking at where we are in the championship. Yeah. But, you know, like Hogan was super fast, Winton, a couple of little mistakes there at one raceway, and, you know, had a real struggle at Sydney Motorsport, unexpectedly really struggled at Sydney Motorsport Park. So, you know, Hogan is now dropped to 7th in the championship, quite a few points back, guy that you'd expect to, you know, really be fighting. So. Yeah,
and you've got experience, Shane Tate as well, somewhere in the mix there. I mean, he's another one with a lot of experience. Had a bit of an up and down weekend at Sydney, but fairly positive, and he came away with some points out of that.
Absolutely. So he's sitting 4th in the championship, and you know, he did a great job. He was super fast. You know, I had a little bit of a bump drive with him, which I found out later you're not supposed to do. But I realised I wasn't going to tow him down the straight, so little bump drive and then over and under him in turn 1. A little bit of racecraft. So yeah, great fun racing these guys.
Mate, it's always fun watching the legend cars. Let's have a look at some of the highlights from the round at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Let's have a look at some of the highlights of this race. Asker Sendel started off the front row, but Brian Pring come from 6th position out of this race to go around the outside. The Aussie #1, Chris Spicer, got involved in something very early. Have a look at the cars sliding here. This was Craig going by in one of the CXC machines, went out over the ripple strip. That may have caused something in the car, because a couple of laps later we saw him really lose a bit of pace and get out of this 7-car battle that it ended up being. Then we got down to these 3, and for a number of laps, that's what it was. It was Pring taking on Dylan Thomas, taking on Hayden, obviously Asker Sendel, and this is how it kept going. There was this moment over there where we had a couple of cars and a yellow on turn number 2, which always takes out an overtaking opportunity. We saw Craig with a big lock up there. Before we get back to these top 3 again, and Asker Sendel wasn't afraid to run the wall to try and get an advantage here at this point. He got back in the lead for just a slim moment, and this one was all on his own. The number 3 of John Holder just spun out, no contact made, which was great. And have a look how close this was then. Nathan Prieto was in the mix there, just trying everything he can to try and improve from that 9th position where he did start. Dylan Thomas, this is the final moments of the race, overtaking Holder, who was a lap car, and across the finish line to get himself his first race win of the weekend, with Ryan Pring in 2nd and Asker Sendel coming across in 3rd. Here's a little bit of a replay, some highlights of the race so far. Dylan Thomas didn't get a bad start, but Hayden Williams just went around the outside. This was Nathan Prieto with an early lock-up into turn number 2, went wide in the sexy roofing number 30, and unfortunately dropped down the field. Just a little bit of contact made there with Asker Sendel and Hayden Williams, and Asker Sendel did everything he could to try and make his way back from that. Have a look at Dylan Thomas, though, with the toe on Shane Tate. They went bumper to bumper, a little bit of Morse code here, but Hayden Williams just sitting in the back took a big advantage, and under brakes managed to get Dylan Thomas up the inside of Tate. Took the lead of the race for the first time out of this, and then Tate relegated back to 3rd position as Dylan Thomas just came down the inside following Williams. This was a big moment, though, where anything could have happened, because as we saw, it was Hogan just rejoining from the outside. Unfortunately, we saw Thomas come down and make contact with Hourigan, and a fair bit of damage sustained to that car before safety car chewed up a number of minutes in this before we went for a final lap dash. 1 lap to get it done. Dylan Thomas trying everything at the start. A couple of cars in the background, we're not quite sure who that was, making contact, so a bit of a concertina effect under brakes. Dylan Thomas, he knew he had to wait for the final corners there. Hayden Williams out of 5, went really, really wide, and Dylan Thomas couldn't take advantage of that one. Knowing how important it is to get the toe onto the main straight, and that can be the difference between 1st and 2nd. Have a look at this. He was right on the back bar. He tried to get as close as possible. Hayden Williams snaking over the track, a little bit defensive there. And as Dylan Thomas moved out, didn't quite move over enough. Wheel-to-wheel contact made, went up in the air, but luckily the 68 machine came down and still managed to get home in 2nd position.
Well, the TFH Hire Legend Cars Australia definitely turned it on at the Super Series in Sydney Motorsport Park. I'm joined back on the show, though, by our series manager, Kaz Oldano, and George Gambino joining us again. Kaz, great to have you in here. We get to see your face a little bit behind the scenes, don't we? I've caught you a few times in the back of the cameras. What's it like to be managing the series?
Oh, wow. Where do you start? No, I have been being gifted the best opportunity, it's great because it's not just one thing, it's a whole abundance of things. And yeah, I love that. A lot to juggle.
It's actually pretty busy behind the scenes. You often watch Kaz directing all the reporters, TV cameras, drivers when we come in at the end of a race. You've got to go here. We've got no time for only one podium speed. You know,
does it feel like childcare sometimes?
It's kind of like just working with my family actually. It's fun. You know, I'd get really bored if I was just assigned to one task, and I don't think people realise what does go on behind the scenes. I mean, you know, you look at running a category, for example, and then you just put all other categories into it, and then you put everything else.
Yeah, managing the TV schedules is probably the hardest bit.
Yeah, oh, don't even.
Those TV guys, they're hard to deal with. They're terrible.
It's a one-take wonder.
But just but just scheduling, obviously, that's always challenging, and then trying to make all the puppets play in line.
Yeah, I think, you know, everyone's got different needs. Each category has different wants and needs, and trying to facilitate it all so you get that happy medium across the line, it's really, really hard. We do try our best. We don't get it right all the time, but, you know, that's the nature of the beast. That is motorsports, right?
And I mean, you come in, a few changes have been made throughout this year, which is great to see. Some new ideas come from you. What is the plans, I suppose, as we head into the back half of 2025 as well as maybe 2026? Yeah,
so the plans are, to be completely honest, it's all about the competitor. I mean, we love all our categories, but we just want them to go out, race and have a good time. And like I said, there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it's really hard to accommodate to everyone's needs. So the plan for 2026 is pure racing.
And how important is it, Kaz, to have someone like George from Hi-Tec Oils on board as a major sponsor for that?
Oh, you know, you cannot do what you do in motorsports without your sponsors, and we're so grateful. George is a unique sponsor because he's hands-on. You know, he's not one that just, you know, puts the money over and expects a lot in return. He actually is out there and he's, you know, pumping the fuel into the jerry cans and, you know, getting his hand dirty, running his own merch van. Every part of the Super Series, George works with us side by side, and you know we're so grateful.
Yeah, it's good to actually work with AASA, and Kaz has been a great implement into that role, and we work well together, and she works with my girls really well and the other staff that we have. So we sort of ask what we sort of require. She facilitates that. So for us, it's an easy work. And people say, why do you do this? You know what? It's easy to do when you're working with really good people. And, you know, we're good friends, and we go out and we make sure that the truck's in the right places and the signs are in the right places most times. And just facilitating all that sort of stuff. It's not easy for them. I ran drifting for 10 years, and Matt would know that was hard work, trying to get everybody on the same page. But AASA and Kaz and Stephen have done a great job, the whole crew. That's why we're part of their partnership is the whole deal. You know, it's not just turning up and giving them money, because that's easy to do. It's getting it right, you know, getting the TV right, getting the sponsors right, getting my corporate rides now we're doing. Perfect.
Thanks,
I think that's the word, is partnership there, isn't it? It's not, like you say, anyone can just hand over money, but it takes a lot of people, it takes a family really to make this sort of thing, these events happen. And like you say, putting out the signs, being on the gate, you know, helping with the website, you know, getting through the scheduling. Like there's so many different, you know, moving cogs that get to a series. Where do you feel that motorsport in Australia is sort of starting to head in terms of, I suppose, like our category and other motorsport events out there? Is there a sort of a goal you can see everyone working towards?
Look, I think grassroots motorsports is where it's at the moment. It's so expensive, and what we want to do is we want to provide a platform where it's affordable. You know, with all these big tracks around Australia, it all comes at a cost. You know, you've got you would know, you've raced in just about every category. You've got your flights, accommodation, if your family want to be there, you know, there's in addition, plus the running costs of the car. So it's just really sad that everything comes with a big price tag, and we're just trying to reduce that. So where it's going at the moment is you're seeing more and more of grassroots coming up and giving it a crack.
It's hard to find it, because I was talking to Dylan before about it, and he's going, you know, can we go to other tracks and that? We can go to any track they can, but it's expensive. It's really expensive. Then when we go and say, oh, this is what it costs to run an event and entry fees, everybody arcs up. And I'm going, but do you understand what it costs to do all this? And everybody loves to see us on TV TV, and I love seeing my brand on there. That's why I do it, purely for television and getting relationships built to be able to sell more product from my side. They need to sell more cars, races on their racetrack, and it's a big job. It's not, like she says, we'll be the first people there at the track and we'll be the last to leave. You know,
there's a lot of other things when you go to a racetrack, isn't there? Accommodation, making sure all the teams have somewhere to stay. The travel costs. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean,
even flights, getting your crew member in.
It'd be great to go up to Townsville or somewhere like that. But that's for a lot of people in Victoria, South Australia. That's a big cost to go up there. So,
and we're dragging, not just Hi-Tec alone. We're dragging like 4 trailers up. You know, those big screens, the merch trailer, the trucks, the cars.
And he's still going to buy another car, another
T8. But that's
we've just stopped him in for about 3 or 4, haven't we?
For us, it's a big job, and for Kaz and that now has taken over this year. It's been a great fit for us because she's very approachable. She does what we need to do. But you know, there's people ringing us up all the time, ringing Kaz, saying, "I need another 5 tickets for this or that." It's just like.
Well, can we squeeze another category? I mean, we've got a lot on our plate. We have 9 categories at Sydney.
Great for the series. I think the series is just booming in the last 2 years. It's been ahead. This year's been a bit of a few hiccups here and there, but I think positive is all up and go now. I think we're just.
Well, I said that to George when we got here this evening. The Hi-Tec Oils Super Series is a platform that is actually growing from strength to strength. The platform that's offered to the competitor is actually unreal. The value, you know, as Kaz is talking about, your dollar per lap, and the category the series managers. They try and make sure that we as a competitor don't lose laps. You know, when something happens on track, it's a big conscious effort to try and keep the competitors on the circuit racing, not just following a safety car, racing and getting the value for our money of our spend. You know, and you say there's a lot of people to manage, but for the size of the operation, it's quite a small team, and everybody is very hands-on. And having seen both sides of it, I'm very impressed with how much everybody does within the series for, you know, because it's not a big team, you know, but there's a lot of people that does stuff, but for the size of the operation, it's actually quite a small team. So a lot of work and a lot of credit needs to go to the people that put them together.
A lot of people don't see them, people that Kaz works with. There's a lot of guys behind Whitey and all that, the boys that have been putting signs out on tracks and getting all the stuff there the week before. You know, our TV guys getting there the week before just to do all this stuff. And that's why I think people realise to run the Super Series is not easy.
And a lot of those people are brought in just for the weekend. So, you know, so there's a lot of not just training, but like directing and managing to make sure that all works.
And like Kat says, we want the categories to grow themselves and be about stronger categories and be bigger. And like Danny before, I've saying to Danny a few times, and it's a great little thing. It'll grow, it'll come there, it'll get there. But he's got a great platform, the Super Series that AASA provide, because I'm just a sponsor and help with other things. But that's what we need to do. Our vision is moving forward and bigger.
I think it can just be summed up as passion. There's a lot of passion for motorsport within the group, within the room, within everything we do. And look, I think we're going to come to an end of our first Super Series Behind the Visor. I want to thank you all for coming along, George, Kaz, Dylan. It's been a great show. We thank everyone who's joined us here. We can't wait to see you, though, up at Queensland Raceway, the 27th to the 29th of June. Make sure you get onto the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series website, grab your tickets, check out the schedule that'll be posted leading up to the event. We can't wait to see you there. Round 3, not too far away.